Hello, Squirrel Squad. Well, I didn't make it to the library. I forgot. Today is Veterans Day, so we need to thank all our... I'm sorry, I'm reading from the Kindle until I can get to the library. Let's see if we got enough of a charge so I can take that thing out. My charger doesn't want to stick in there good. Okay, so we are going to start with what I have on the Kindle. Little Men, Life at Plumfield with Joe's Boys. Chapter 1 is Nat. Please, sir, is this the Plumfield? Did I already read part of this? I can't remember. I don't think I did. No, I didn't. Ask a ragged boy of the man who opened the great gate at which the omnibus left him. Yes, who sent you? Mr. Lawrence. I have got a letter for the lady. All right, go up to the house and give it to her. She'll see to you, little chap. The man spoke pleasantly, and the boy went on, feeling much cheered by the words. Through the soft spring rain that fell on sprouting grass and budding trees, Nat saw a large square house before him, a hospital-looking house with an old-fashioned porch, wide steps, and lights shining in many rooms. Neither curtains nor shutters hid the cheerful glimmer, and, pausing a moment before he rang, Nat saw many shadows dancing on the walls, heard the pleasant hum of young voices, and felt that it was hardly possible that the light and warmth and comfort within could be for a homeless little chap like him. I hope the lady will see to me, he thought, and gave a timid rap with the great bronze knocker, which was a jovial griffin's head. A rosy-faced servant maid opened the door and smiled as she took the letter, which he silently offered. She seemed used to receiving strange boys, for she pointed to a seat in the hall and said with a nod, sit there and drip on the mat a bit while I take this in to Mrs. Nat found plenty to amuse him while he waited and stared about him curiously, enjoying the view yet glad to do so unobserved in the dusky recess by the door. The house seemed swarming with boys who were beguiling the rainy twilight with all sorts of amusements. There were boys everywhere, upstairs and downstairs, and in the ladies' chamber, apparently for various open doors, showed pleasant groups of big boys, little boys, and medium-sized boys in all stages of evening relaxation, not to say effervescence. Two large rooms on the right were evidently schoolrooms, for desks, maps, blackboards, and books were scattered about. An open fire burned on the hearth, and several indolent lads lay on their backs before it, discussing a new cricket ground with such animation that their boots waved in the air. A tall youth was practicing on the flute in one corner, quite undisturbed by the racket all about him. Two or three others were jumping over the desk, pausing now and then to get their breath, and laugh at the droll sketches of a little wag who was caricaturing the whole household on a blackboard. In the room on the left, a long supper table was seen, set forth with great pitchers of new milk, piles of brown and white bread, and perfect stacks of the shiny gingerbread so dear to boyish souls. A flavor of toast was in the air, also suggestions of baked apples, very tantalizing to one hungry little nose and stomach. The hall, however, presented the most inviting prospect of all, for a brisk game of tag was going on in the upper entry. One landing was devoted to marbles, the other to checkers, while the stairs were occupied by a boy reading, a girl singing a lullaby to her doll, two puppies, a kitten, and a constant succession of small boys sliding down the banisters, to the great detriment of their clothes and danger to their limbs. So absorbed did Ned become in this exciting race that he ventured farther and farther out of his corner, and when one very lively boy came down so swiftly that he could not stop himself, but fell off the banisters with a crash that would have broken any head, but one rendered nearly as hard as a cannonball by 11 years of constant bumping, Nat forgot himself and ran up to the fallen rider, expecting to find him half dead. The boy, however, only winked rapidly for a second, then lay calmly looking up at the new face with a surprised "Hello?" "Hello," returned Nat, not knowing what else to say and thinking that form of reply both brief and easy. "Are you a new boy?" asked the recumbent youth without stirring. "Don't know yet. What's your name?" "Nat Blake." "Mine's Tommy Bangs." I think he's the one that's around her. "Come up and have a go, will you?" And Tommy got upon his legs like one suddenly remembering the duties of hospitality. "Guess I won't till I see whether I'm going to stay or not," returned Nat, feeling the desire to stay increase every moment. "I say, Demi, here's a new one. Come and see to him." And the lively Thomas returned to his sport with unabated relish. At his call, the boy reading on the stairs looked up with a pair of big brown eyes, and after an instant's pause, as if he were a little shy, he put the book under his arm and came soberly down to greet the newcomer, who found something very attractive in the pleasant face of the slender, mild-eyed boy. "Have you seen Aunt Jo?" he asked, as if that was some sort of important ceremony. "So this is Demi, grown up, I reckon." "I haven't seen anybody yet but you boys. I'm waiting," answered Nat. "Did Uncle Laurie send you?" proceeded Demi politely but gravely. "Mr. Lawrence did." "Oh, he is Uncle Laurie, and he always sends nice boys." Nat looked gratified at the remark and smiled in a way that made his thin face very pleasant. He did not know what to say next, so the two stood staring at one another in friendly silence, till the little girl came up with her doll in her arms. She was very like Demi, only not so tall, and had a rounder, rosier face and blue eyes. "This is my sister Daisy," announced Demi, as if presenting a rare and precious creature. The children nodded to one another, and the little girl's face dimpled with pleasure as she said affably, "I hope you'll stay. We have such good times here, don't we, Demi?" "Of course we do. That's what Aunt Jo has Plumfield for." "It seems a very nice place indeed," observed Nat, feeling that he must respond to these amiable young persons. "It's the nicest place in the world, isn't it, Demi?" said Daisy, who evidently regarded her brother as an authority on all subjects. "No, I think Greenland, where the iceberg and seals are, is more interesting. But I'm fond of Plumfield, and it's a very nice place to be in," returned Demi, who was interested just now in a book on Greenland. He was about to offer to show Nat the pictures and explain them when the servant returned, saying with a nod toward the parlor door, "All right, you are to stop. I'm glad. Now come to Aunt Jo." And Daisy took him by the hand with a pretty protecting air, which made Nat feel at home at once. Demi returned to his beloved book while his sister led the newcomer into a back room where a stout gentleman was frolicking with two boys on the sofa, and a thin lady was just finishing the letter which she seemed to have been rereading. "Here he is, Annie," cried Daisy. "So this is my new boy." "I'm glad to see you, my dear, and hope you'll be happy here," said the lady, drawing him to her and stroking back the hair from his forehead with a kind hand and a motherly look which made Nat's lonely little heart yearn toward her. She was not at all handsome, but she had a merry sort of face that never seemed to have forgotten certain childish ways and looks any more than her voice and manner had. And these things, hard to describe but very plain to see and feel, made her made her a genial, comfortable kind of person, easy to get on with and generally jolly, as boys would say. She saw the little tremble of Nat's lips as she smoothed his hair, and her keen eyes grew softer, but she only drew the shabby figure nearer and said, laughing, I am Mother Bear. That gentleman is Father Bear, and these are the two little bears. Come here, boys, and see Nat. The three wrestlers obeyed at once, and the stout man, with a chubby child on each shoulder, came up to welcome the new boy. Rob and Teddy merely grinned at him. But Mr. Bear shook hands and pointed to a low chair near the fire and said in a cordial voice, There is a place all ready for thee, my son. Sit down and dry thy feet at once. Wet? So they are. My dear, off with your shoes this minute, and I'll have some dry things ready for you in a jiffy, cried Mrs. Bear, bustling about so energetically that Nat found himself in the cozy little chair with dry socks and warm slippers on his feet before he would have time to say Jack Robinson, if he had wanted to try. He said, Thank you, ma'am, instead, and said it so gratefully that Mrs. Bear's eyes grew soft again, and she said something merry because she felt so tender, which was a way she had. There are Tommy Bang's slippers, but he never will remember to put them on in the house, so he shall not have them. They are too big, but that's all the better. You can't run away from us so fast if they are fitted. I don't want to run away, ma'am, and Nat spread his grimy little hands before the comfortable blaze with a long sigh of satisfaction. That's good. Now I'm going to toast you well and try to get rid of that ugly cough. How long have you had it, dear? Asked Mrs. Bear, as she rummaged in her big basket for a strip of flannel. All winter. I got cold, and it wouldn't get better somehow. No wonder, living in that dark cellar with hardly a rag to his poor dear back, said Mrs. Bear in a low tone to her husband, who was looking at the boy with a skillful pair of eyes that marked the thin temples and feverish lips, as well as the hoarse voice and frequent fits of coughing that shook the bent shoulders under the patched jacket. Hang on just a minute. I have very dry mouth. Cold coffee concoction. Which is strong coffee, a little flavored creamer, 1% milk. Robin, my man, trot up to the nursery and tell her to give thee a cough bottle and the liniment, said Mr. Bear after his eyes had exchanged telegrams with his wife's. Nat looked a little anxious at the preparations, but forgot his fears in a hearty laugh when Mrs. Bear whispered to him with a droll look, Hear my rogue Teddy try to cough. The syrup I'm going to give you has honey in it, and he wants some. Little Ted was red in the face with his exertions by the time the bottle came, and was allowed to suck the spoon after Nat had manfully taken a dose and had the bit of flannel put about his throat. These first steps toward a cure were hardly completed when a great bell rang, and a loud trampling through the hall announced supper. Bashful Nat quaked at the thought of meeting many strange boys, but Mrs. Bear held her hand out to him, and Rob said patronizingly, Don't be afraid. I'll take care of you. 12 boys, 6 on each side, stood behind their chairs, prancing with impatience to begin, while the tall flute-playing youth was trying to curb their ardor But no one sat still till Mrs. Bear was in her place behind the teapot, with Teddy on her left and Nat on her right. "This is our new boy, Nat Blake. After supper you can say, 'How do you do?' Gently, boys, gently." As she spoke, everyone stared at Nat and then whisked into their seats, trying to be orderly and failing utterly. The Bears did their best to have the lads behave well at meal times, and generally succeeded pretty well, for their rules were few and sensible, and the boys, knowing that they tried to make things easy and happy, did their best to obey. But there were times when hungry boys cannot be suppressed without real cruelty, and Saturday evening after a half holiday was one of those times. Dear little souls, do let them have one day in which they can howl and racket and frolic to their heart's content. A holiday isn't a holiday without plenty of freedom and fun, and they shall have full swing once a week, Mrs. Bear used to say, when prim people wondered why banister sliding, pillow fights, and all manner of jovial games were allowed under the once decorous roof at Plumfield. It did seem at times as if the aforesaid roof was in danger of flying off, but it never did, for a word from Father Bear could at any time produce a lull, and the lads had learned that liberty must not be abused. So in spite of many dark predictions, the school flourished, and manners and morals were insinuated without the pupils exactly knowing how it was done. Nat found himself very well off behind the tall pictures, with Tommy Bangs just around the corner, and Mrs. Bear close by to fill up plate and mug as fast as he could empty them. "Who is that boy next to the girl down at the other end?" whispered Nat to his young neighbor under cover of a general laugh. "That's Demi Brooke. Mr. Bear is his uncle." "What a queer name." "His real name is John, but they call him Demi John because his father is John too. That's a joke, don't you see?" said Tommy, kindly explaining. Nat did not see, but politely smiled and asked with interest, "Isn't he a very nice boy?" "I bet you he is. Knows lots and reads like anything." "Who is the fat one next him?" "Oh, that's Stuffy Cole. His name is George, but we all call him Stuffy because he eats so much. The little fella next Father Bear is his boy, Rob. And then there's Big Franz, his nephew. He teaches some and kind of sees to us." "He plays the flute, doesn't he?" asked Nat, as Tommy rendered himself speechless by putting a whole baked apple into his mouth at one blow. Oh my gosh. Tommy nodded and said sooner than one would have imagined possible under the circumstances, "Oh, don't he though? And we dance sometimes and do gymnastics to music. I like a drum myself and mean to learn as soon as ever I can." "I like a fiddle best. I can play one too," said Nat, getting confidential on this attractive subject. "Can you?" And Tommy stared over the rim of his mug with round eyes full of interest. "Mr. Bear's got an old fiddle, and he'll let you play on it if you want to." "Could I? Oh, I would like it ever so much. You see, I used to go round fiddling with my father and another man till he died." "Wasn't that fun?" cried Tommy, much impressed. "No, it was horrid. So cold in winter and hot in summer, and I got tired, and they were cross sometimes, and I didn't get enough to eat." Nat paused to take a generous bite of gingerbread, as if to assure himself that the hard times were over, and then he added regretfully, "But I did love my little fiddle, and I miss it. Niccolo took it away when my father died and wouldn't have me any longer 'cause I was sick. You'll belong to the band if you play good. See if you don't." "Do you have a band here?" Nat's eyes sparkled. "Guess we do, a jolly band. All boys, and they have concerts and things. You just see what happens tomorrow night." After this pleasantly exciting remark, Tommy returned to his supper, and Nat sank into a blissful reverie over his full plate. Mrs. Bear had heard all they had, while apparently absorbed in filling mugs, and overseen little Ted, who was so sleepy that he put his spoon in his eye, nodded like a rosy poppy, and finally fell asleep with his cheek billowed on a soft bun. Mrs. Bear had put Nat next to Tommy because that roly-poly boy had a frank and social way with him, very attractive to shy persons. Nat felt this and had made several small confidences during supper, which gave Mrs. Bear the key to the new boy's character, better than if she had talked to him herself. In the letter which Mr. Lawrence had sent with Nat, he had said, "Dear Joe, here is a case after your own heart. This poor lad is an orphan now, sick and friendless. He has been a street musician, and I found him in a cellar, mourning for his dead father and his lost violin. I think there is something in him, and have a fancy that between us we may give this little man a lift. You cure his overtasked body, Fritz help his neglected mind, and when he is ready, I'll see if he is genius or only a boy with a talent which may earn his bread for him. Give him a trial for the sake of your own boy, Teddy." Goodness, there's, I don't know how much more. Seems to be quite a bit, guys, so I'm going to stop right here and bookmark this. If I can find the bookmark again. Come on, bookmark. Well, anyway, I'll find it and do it. But I hope to see you folks at 5 Eastern today. Don't wait on notifications. Set an alarm or something. And I don't know about the chat yet. I'm still looking to see. For right now, let's do no more than 2 emojis, I guess. All the stuff just makes me crazy. Numbers, I guess, are out too. I'll check and see about that. But the emoji seems to be the biggest thing. So 2 emojis, I think. 2, maybe 3. But I'd go with no more than 2, maybe. I'll tell you about the rest when the time comes. Be sweet, don't be ugly, and hope to see you later. Bye-bye.